wasn't so bad. But that even starting just within our own family, that if we think about what it would be if there was only us, if there were only your crazy mother to deal with, if there were no other adults in your life. To imagine a family where we all liked exactly the same things and did exactly the same things time after time. But, if it doesn't work in families, why would we think we want it to work in the world? Why would we think that we don't want a diversity of gifts and challenges and ideas and ways of looking at the world in the community of nations? And so we start opening our minds to the possibility that all the difference that exists is there to offer us greater opportunities of dealing with problems and issues. That having someone who looks at a problem just from a slightly different angle than we do offers us a slightly different angle of a solution. That having someone who sees the world through a different myth story, and I say a different myth story to talk about religion, that if you listen to the stories of creation from around the world, I'm always struck at how amazing the human imagination and mind and way of making sense of things is. How similar and how different it is across the world. And when we listen to other people's stories, and when we admit that there is something in someone else's knowledge that might be of help to us, we open wider vistas for ourselves. When we ask, why in your language you have 600 words for snow, and we learn that because in their environment there are 600 different types of snow, and if you don't know which one somebody is telling you about, you could be about to perish. That why in your language do you have 5 different words for aunt? That's my language. In Xhosa, we have your aunt. It depends whether that's your father's sister, and if it's your mother's sister, whether it's older or younger, or whether she's married to your father. It's just, it's like, so you're a what kind of aunt? Okay, now I got it. But why do, in your language, you break out those many different titles and descriptions? Well, because it was important to know which people you could marry and which you couldn't, So it helps to know that, oh, that's an aunt, but there's no blood. So her child, that's good. It's good to know, to be safe that way. But that when we ask and hear the reasons why our languages emphasize different things and don't mention others, that again, it shows us the wealth of knowledge that exists in the human community. It teaches us what people value and why. And it makes us start asking ourselves what it is we value and why. When we take it upon ourselves to find out how different others actually are, we finally come to the place where we recognize how similar we are at our base. Because when you talk to people around the world and you ask, what is it that you most want? All over the world, people say, I want to be safe. People say, I want my children to be healthy. People say, I want my children to be educated. People say, I want to live in a community that recognizes my worth as a human being. That all over the world, people in diverse communities say, I want to be seen. I want to be seen and respected as a human being. In different languages, in different gatherings, people say, I want someone to listen to my story and validate who I am. I want my humanity recognized. That when it boils down to it, we want to be seen and recognized as human beings of infinite value, with gifts and dreams and hopes and challenges. And the challenge to each of us is, are we going to be those who are willing to recognize the humanity of others, particularly the humanity of those whom we know as other, the humanity of those whom we know as enemy, the humanity of those whom we know as our oppressors. For me, the first time I really began to think about that was when I came to this country as a college student and was asked to talk about growing up in apartheid South Africa. And when people would start asking questions about South Africa and the experience of growing up there, that without fail, there would be somebody who would stand up in the audience and say, my goodness, you know, white South Africans must be terrible people. I mean, how can they do this? What kind of awful people is that whole community? And I started to think about that. And what came to me was, I wondered, what would have happened if I had been born a white South African? You know? That what if I had been educated from my very early birth that we were somehow God's chosen people and that people of color were less than, and being raised in the privilege that apartheid gave white South Africans? I questioned whether I would have been one of those white South Africans who challenged apartheid, who said this system is wrong even as it privileges me. I know it is wrong.